Hi, this is Andrew.
And Bob?
You listen to the Watchtower. Normally at 6:30 every Saturday, but we're a bit late today, unfortunately. Today we're going to be talking about student loans and other stuff in the news. Do you want to start?
Yeah. One sec. Right. We'll start with the student loans section then. The average student loan, as most of you will know, is £3,840 a year. Well, yeah, that is a year, sorry. With 45% of students offered a maintenance grant of £3,250 and 14% offered something partial to that. But recent research has shown that the cost of living for a student outside of London is £12,160 a year, which seems ridiculously high when you first look at it, but having spoken to a few people, looked at the way that rent and everything's taken into account, it is quite reasonable. But then you also have to look that if the average student is only getting just shy of 4,000, a lot of cases that doesn't cover rent, again with people that I know. And then even with students from families that aren't so well off, you're still really only getting just shy of £8,000 a year. You're still down by £4,000.
Yeah. So where does this £4,000 come from?
They expect you to get it from your parents, to be fair.
Okay.
Or it's either that or work. So working, it's understandable, but you also need to think you're at university. If you're spreading yourself between your work and your uni work, it's going to affect your grades, it's going to affect your understanding of the course, it's going to affect your overall experience of uni, to be fair. And if you've got to rely on it from your family, I started having a look into this and it got quite interesting. The national minimum wage at the minute is £6.50 an hour, with the average person in England working 1,669 hours a year on average.
What does that work out to?
I've just got that bit down.
Sorry.
But I did have a look with the cost of living wage outside of London being £7.85 an hour. When you actually add this up for the hours over the year, the average worker is losing out on just over £22,000 a year, which you can do a hell of a lot with 20 grand. And if you need a couple more grand just to get through uni, it's going to be a massive help. But families aren't getting it. So obviously, it's going to be affecting your family life. Parents stress that the children are away from home anyway, not to mention that they're worrying they might not be able to afford food.
Yeah. So this is probably increased when you have multiple children as well. So to be able to support two children going through uni, you're talking £8,000 a year rather than 4,000, which is a big jump.
That's it, easily. But you've also got to look at like the actual effect of it. So if you've got a lot of people leaving university with a lower understanding of the course, you apply that stuff like law, you don't really want that. Medicine, everything like that. People need a really in-depth knowledge of what they're studying.
Okay.
So people who are leaving it, they'll know what they're doing.
Okay, so you're saying that the requirement for money lowers the education overall?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Well, I think that can be said of pretty much everything.
Yeah. It's quite interesting. I was having a look, and there's only, how many was it? There's only 8 institutions in the top 50 where you can pay under £9,000 just for the fees alone.
But those are only down by about £500.
They're about £8,000.
So £500 is still not that much when you're still down by at least £3,500.
Yeah. That debt though comes from the actual student loan that's paid for by the government straight away, so it's not as big a concern, but it's definitely still a stressor.
I don't know. Well, yeah, that part of it is. That's fine. You don't need to worry about that. I'm misunderstood what you said then.
Yeah.
But
it's still bad, that especially when a lot of these cities they have quite a high, when the rate of spend, so the prices are
inflation.
Slightly higher. No, just like the prices. So in the city where I'm from.
Do you mean like cost of living?
Yeah, the cost of living is drastically higher in student cities. Yeah, outside of London. London is just fun.
Oh, London is just ridiculous.
Yeah. The point about the the price of student fees was, are you actually paying for more? Do you get more for what you pay?
I don't think you can say that you do, because you just look at the league tables. You can't say that a university at the bottom of the league table charging £9,000 is the same as Oxford or Cambridge up at the top, which also was charging £9,000.
Yeah. What else?
I was just going to say, I suppose in some respects that with university it is varying away from the way that education is done in a lot of other institutions, like college and schools.
Yeah.
So, in many respects, you're not really paying for a high level of tuition. You're paying for a high level of access to different resources. But again, I don't think that's something that.
So, should it be free?
University, in my opinion, all education should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be very interesting the effects of that.
It's well, you look at countries like I think a lot of Northern European countries. I think Scandinavia have free tuition. I know parts of Holland and the Netherlands do, and I think Scotland does as well for Scottish students, as well as Germany. So there is a lot of countries that are able to provide free education at a university standard. It's just depends on who's got a vested interest in how much money is going in and coming out.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting if universities were free. There'd certainly be a much higher uptake of people.
Oh, definitely.
But whether universities would be able to handle that, because that would then cost more, that then would have to be paid for.
I don't know. I think it'll balance out. I think
it's the same shortfall that we're going to have in the loans. So it's the same gap we'd have now, but we're going to have in 50 years' time with the loans, where people will not be able to pay back their loans. So it's the same gap. But it's just this side of the electoral time.
That's the thing. The loans are kind of set up in a way where they don't expect half the students to pay them back. So they're setting themselves up for a shortfall thereof.
Seems quite unintelligent to set up a system that is designed to fail, like in that way. So, I wonder what there was a really interesting document on the reform. So £10 billion is loaned to students every year, and they expect the value of outstanding loans at today's prices to be over 100 billion by 2018. So we're talking about it's quite a lot of money. It's a lot of money to not have.
Yeah.
It's strange how it adds up. Yeah.
I really would love to see inside a politician's mind and just see the actual progression of events.
Well, this thing here is actually the document for the loan statistics. So this is a document available if you just Google student loan statistics from 13th of February 2015. It's the government report that was made available in the House of Commons. So it's kind of now looking back on the changes to tuition fees from 2012 to 2013 and how they affected students and how they affected the monetary system in general. It's just a very interesting read for anyone that enjoys low interest rates, zero interest rate arguments and everything. But it fully expects there to be a shortfall. So, so they estimated that by about 2050, so the middle of this century, there's going to be a loan of 330 billion of student tuition fees at the current prices. So this is assuming that the current prices don't go up or down.
Yeah.
So in their words, real terms. So I assume that accounts for inflation. And
I really don't understand how we can, like I said, set up a system where they're expecting such a massive shortfall, where the country's in so much debt at the moment that not only can we afford to sort of pump so much in that we're not going to get in returns on. that are also
Yeah.
basically
Oh wow,
trying
that's
to pay
a
off.
big number. So at the moment, UK national debt is that's more than a trillion. That's
Grows
what's
by
bigger than a trillion. Yeah, a whole power of three.
grows
figure.
by £5,170 per second. This is one thing that really makes me laugh: the national debt and
Actually,
the global debt.
think about that. Probably in 6 seconds, right? You could pay off your student loan.
Hey, yeah.
6 whole seconds.
But this is money that literally doesn't exist in the world. There is so much money that is just being made on a computer, which is kind of the result of the banking crisis, and definitely plays into that we have more debt than we have money to pay off, and we're actively trying to pay it off.
Yeah. It's to break it down, so per citizen we're looking at, is that £24? £24 per citizen.
No.
That is 24, isn't it? Or is this a European 24?
No, yeah, it was per citizen.
Yeah, so a figure is about 4.8 trillion for just about roughly how much that is. And that's a lot. That's a lot of money, really. And just go add 330 billion of student loans seems a good way to go about making that problem better.
Yeah. Just think like world hunger.
Yep.
The environment, everything like that could all be sorted.
Yeah.
But no, we're paying it all back to Coca-Cola in that one. Sorry.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, it's interesting. So if we made it free, that means we'd have to pay now. So obviously, I don't think that would ever happen, because you'd have to put tax up, and people wouldn't. Why would people do that for students? Think of the reputation that we have.
I don't know, but you also look back at like the 60s and 70s. People were fully able to go to work, work part-time to pay their tuition while they were studying, and still be able to afford to actually have some form of life.
Yeah.
So if we were able to do that, 30, 40 years ago?
30, 40 years ago, you could work down at the factory and then go buy a house for £8,000.
But you kind of need to look at the reason for inflation. I know it's majorly oversimplifying it, saying that it's kind of going for profit, but when you look at the actual cost of living and the way that it rises, and put that to inflation, and the money that people are actually getting back out, it does start to look like just a massive transfer of wealth. Same as paying back the national debt. It's a pointless system, but we're just giving a large amount of money to people that have a bigger amount of money.
There's actually part of this paper, actually, they were talking about where it ended up. Just see if I can find it, but they were saying there is a company that owns, it's not, I don't think it's Student Finance England, but there's a body of people that actually own the debt. Yeah. So someone owns the student loan debt. It's quite an odd idea that obviously someone must own that debt.
You can make quite a large amount of money off that.
Yeah.
China's buying up large amounts of American debt at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, that's what Germany's done with Greece's debt. They own Greece's debt, which is why they have to pay them. Which is why it's so ironic that Greece is like, no, we're not going to pay. It's like, yeah, because it's strange, because I think it's the German equivalent of the pension system is dependent on Greece's debt.
Oh, right.
So that money to pay for their elderly is dependent on Greece paying their bailout money.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. It's like someone suffers somewhere, don't they? But
I read this thing that literally every pound that you have is a pound of somebody else's debt.
Oh.
And when you think about it, there is more money than, more cash than actual currency money. So a pound of yours is a pound of someone else's debt, and it's just moving money from one bit to another. If you're not going to be in a position where you can actually clear it or do anything with it, You're kind of just going to sit there and drown in it.
Yeah.
I found out as well it wasn't
Oh, wow.
actually until about 100 years or so ago that debts actually existed and carried on to the way they did.
Yeah.
Up until then, all governments, as they were the central source for distribution rather than the corporation, as soon as debt started to affect its citizens, it'd just clear it straight off.
Yeah. The world debt stands at 60 trillion.
Ooh.
It's quite a lot of money.
It's a good weekend.
That you could have a very good weekend with 60 trillion. that could literally be a world-ending weekend.
I can't even comprehend 60 trillion.
No. I can't really comprehend a billion.
No.
I don't, a billion. A million is a lot. A billion
Yeah.
and a trillion is just much more than, especially for our students with our 12 grand annual spending.
If we get the 12 grand into the
Yeah.
giveaway.
Yeah, sorry, if we get the supplemental 4 grand as well. Yeah. So, what else is on there? Yeah. So, what else could be done about student loans then? What could be done to make it easier? So we could have dedicated jobs or extra support for students, but also we could make the student loans a set level for everyone, regardless of. So don't tailor it and just set it at a certain high bar, and then you choose where you take it, how much you take, which you can do already. To be fair, you can say that you only want a certain portion of your loan.
Yes, but that's dependent on whether or not you've got an extra income coming in.
Yes.
You could also do we're at the University of Lincoln, and you were telling me yesterday that the university can start producing.
Yeah.
So when a student does their coursework, say they're in graphic design, they'll produce an idea, it'll go over to the engineering department, who'll create it, fill it off as one final product. Yeah. If you start doing that at various other stages within the university, you could soon, in a sense, make the university its own little producing hub. Produce stuff locally, that's going to get a lot of money back in.
Make the university an external business.
Yeah, and then the money that gets in as profit just kind of reduce the tuition fees for everybody to accommodate it. That way you've got people coming out with less debt, they feel more comfortable while they're there because they're able to study rather than learn, and you've got the university interacting with the local community, which in a place like Lincoln, the university is over half of the city, yet you look around and it's got a massive lower class.
Yeah.
In some parts it's just got a massive underclass. Any contact with the university is going to serve some good, even if it just helps to work out what the local community needs.
Interestingly, many of the locals would disagree with you there. Many of the locals. Just why at the time we should probably do the news bit. I know we've done it backwards this week and we've done our segment bit first, but the news bit is just as interesting. So the news is we're talking about the cash for access. If you have any comments or anything, feel free to send us a message on Facebook or an email. So the cash for access is basically people paying people money to do stuff within Parliament. Very, very vastly simplified. There are rules and regulations against this, which is why the individuals that we're talking about were I'd say disciplined, even though they resigned or they were fired. It's a certain type of discipline. It's kind of like, we'll let you go this time, just don't ever do it again.
It's not really a discipline, is it? No. If you go quietly, nothing will happen.
Yeah.
You'll be able to keep everything that you've already made.
It's interesting that we're talking about where is it? Rifkind and Jack Straw, Malcolm Rifkind and Jack Straw, who last week were facing cash for access allegations. Rifkind, he said this phrase. I don't know how you could say this to the media with a straight face, but he said he had the right to supplement his MP salary because he wanted to have the standard of living his professional background would normally entitle him to. So basically, I don't have enough money, I want some more money because I want nice stuff.
In a way, you can kind of understand because he's going to be a direct product of the environment that he's grown up in. I don't know personally, but I'm pretty sure that he's on the Conservative side, the chance that he's gone to had some form of private education in the past, which working within the Conservative Party. So you need to think in a lot of ways these people are kind of removed from the society that they're living in. They live in a little privileged bubble for a large portion of their lives. To then go without, it's the same as anybody. No one wants to give up.
It's interesting you say that though, but there's rules in the House of Lords and House of Commons that specifically prevent this kind of thing, or they say you shouldn't do it. I'd say
they say that you shouldn't do it, but it's one of those things. It's an institutional problem. Just by they have a little sheet which they have to declare any additional earnings on.
Yeah.
Is there anything over £5,000? Would you say?
I think it's anything over 500. They have to declare the source, and they have to declare whether it was for anything. So you have to say what it was for, as well as where you got it from and when.
Yeah, but these people are kind of just down with. I'm working as the CEO for this company. I'm on its board of directors. It's a lot of times it is kind of just seen as being completely separate. Whereas personally, I think that if you're in a position where you're working for the government, trying to make everything better for the people, then your own personal opinion to an extent is irrelevant. You get an opinion on how a policy would affect your life, but other than that, I think if they're receiving a payment of £69,000 a year in a government salary,
well, 67 and 60, but that's plus expenses, so you can claim for things that you would otherwise use. It's interesting to note that Jack Straw, the other individual who has been, again, I'll use the word caught lightly, for the cash for access allegations. He claimed to, these are his words, he operated under the radar to influence change on EU rules on behalf of ED&F Man, a commodity firm, and they paid him £60,000 a year to influence policy. He also boasted of convincing the Ukrainian Prime Minister to change laws that would have hindered the same firm's sugar production in Ukraine. So it's kind of playing both sides a little bit there. Even to start with, if you're going to work for someone, work for them, don't work against them at the same time.
This is kind of the best position for them, though. They're in a position where they get to directly affect policy, and they're also, it's basically insider trading. They're in a position where they know how policy is going to affect a business before the business does.
Well, they know the policy before they do, don't they? They know proposed policies.
They're in a position where they can literally just go whichever way makes the most money, because, like Jack Straw said, that's what it's all about. I quickly had a look as well. The national average wage for Britain is £26,500 a year. So we're on below half of what the average politician earns. David Cameron earned £142,000 a year as well, which I don't know. He's got a house paid for. He's got cars paid for.
But that is his role. He is head of the heads, isn't he? He is leader.
He is, but the average lollipop lady, cleaner, we'll go for the average cleaner, and just over £8,000 a year.
Okay.
Cameron is meant to be representing these people, and when the majority of the population earns below £26,000, I find it hard to believe that someone who's on just shy of £150,000 has that much, not necessarily in common, but understands the same problem.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably a problem that several people within Parliament possess, a slight out of touch kind of angle. On what you were saying about the leaving and then going to work for a company, it's called the revolving door within politics, and it's where an individual can influence policy and then leave government to go work for the company that they influence policy on behalf of. So an example of this is Sir Shepard Coles for BAE Systems. In 2011, he became BAE Systems their international business development director, focusing on the Middle East. But this is after he had what's been described as a profound effect on Robert Waddell's decision to drop a serious fraud investigation, the Serious Fraud Office investigation, should I say, into BAE Systems' allegedly corrupt dealings with Saudi Arabia. This is available to view online for anyone that's interested. Just search and it'll come up. So they pleaded good. So this is BAE Systems. They pleaded guilty to an American court, but they were found. This is the funny thing. So the investigation was dropped by the Serious Fraud Office, which is why Robert Waddell is thought to have been victim to an effect of some kind. But the judicial review of the Serious Fraud Office to drop the investigation was granted, and they decided that they acted unlawfully in dropping it. But it was overturned by a House of Lords ruling. So the House of Lords overturned the judicial review and said that it was lawfully dropped. This is despite them pleading guilty to an American court. So they were found innocent here, but they pleaded guilty in an American court.
A nation doesn't mean anything anymore now. When you're kind of looking at corporations and kind of money that's coming in, where you are doesn't mean anything. It's even the country that you live in kind of loses its meaning. A lot of people, what's the easiest way to put it? Corporations just go international. They exist above and outside any national boundaries or national laws. So the fact that they are admitted to it in America makes no difference. That's America.
No, of course not. And they may have been found guilty for slightly different things, and obviously American law is different to our law in many ways. Like their corporation law is different to our law in the sense they charge them as corporations the majority of the time. Should we move on and do our recommended sections?
Yeah.
So this week we're not recommending a film, we're recommending an artist. Do you want to?
Yeah. This week it is Kate Tempest, who I absolutely love, could marry quite easily.
It's a big statement.
Yeah, it really is actually for me. But she's a poet, a playwright, a rapper, a recording artist, a novelist. She's won the Ted Hughes Award for Innovations in Poetry for Brand New Ancients, and was nominated for a Mercury Award for her album Everybody's Down this year. It's the main thing for me is just the way she was words. It's so simplistic, yet so poetic.
It's very engrossing, isn't it?
Definitely. What was it that you said? I don't know what her art is, but what she's good at it.
Yeah.
And it really is the same. But Brand New Ancients is the story of two neighbours who have an affair, and then it kind of follows the lives of those two, the children, and looks at the way that they try and reconcile the guilt that they've had, and also how this initial experience is going to alter them, alter their family, and alter all of their interactions throughout their lives. The most interesting thing is that it explains how these, what she calls everyday odysseys, are no different from the stories and myths that we all know, like a lot of the ancient Greek ones, the Roman ones, and how one day in the future they will look back just as we look back, and in a sense we will be the Brand New Ancients. But the full piece, unfortunately, it's not touring anymore, and I never got to see it. I nearly cried when I missed that. Was done to the Battersea Art Centre in London and has full orchestral score, and it's about an hour long. But the actual book, you can get it on Amazon for, I think I got mine for about £5, the Kindle, and it's incredible. The way that she's able to convey it, even though it is poetry, and like an hour long. It's so easy to read, and oh, I can't even say how good it is.
What would you give it then out of 10?
20.
20 out of 10?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll go with that. I think I'd give it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
I've got to stay within the 10 limit. But
get out of the box, man.
Okay. Alright. I think that just about wraps today up. Thank you very much for listening. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Bob.
We'll be back next week, hopefully more on time at 6:30. Yeah.
See you later, guys.
Bye.